Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and I just finished watching HBO's Tom Hanks's Philadelphia. Oh, no. Actually, no. It was The Last of Us 3. Long time. And boy, did it earn that title, because it was long, bloated, unnecessary, and entirely pointless. And for the majority of the episode, at least after the halfway point, Philadelphia is a good comparison for it, because it just randomly goes into this kind of like dying gay man story that is very awkward. Overall, this episode is worse than the previous two. I didn't think the show could get much worse than the last one for being slow, plotting, pointless, not developing the characters, but this one managed to do it because we get about 5 minutes of the protagonist characters, Joel and Ellie, in this entire episode. And the two characters that we focus primarily on, Bill and Frank, they don't continue. That's from the game, is that they're only in the short portion as well, but their life story does not affect Joel and Ellie much going forward. It does not affect the story. It does not affect the plot. You could probably skip this episode and go from 2 to 4, and I doubt you would miss anything of actual importance to the overall plot and story. It's as if they just wanted a gay spin-off episode. It really feels as if they've imported another show's episode randomly into this one. It's like some Hallmark stuff that really doesn't fit. This is a zombie apocalypse show. This is a horror thriller action show, and there was about 20 seconds of action, and that 20 seconds was really asinine, from the tactical decisions made, the character decisions that were made that were contradictory to what the show had established. The script was nonsensical. Even like Hallmark or CW would be ashamed of a script this horrifically bad. It is entirely pointless, a waste of time, and built off of characters that we don't need to know anything about whatsoever. And the two protagonists, in their 5 minutes, once again, Joel is not a character. He is just a walking, talking piece of cardboard. And Ellie is portrayed as a psychopath. And that's all we get about the primary characters. Everything else is pointless. And I just can't believe I spent 80 whole minutes watching that drudge of nonsense. Bloat is really not a strong enough term to describe how much wasted time there was in this episode. You really would have it in about 5 minutes, just the Joel and Ellie stuff, and then if you really wanted to show the Bill and Frank story, you could cut it down substantially. I feel like you could probably do 15-20 minutes and still get all the plot points and the character development that was included. It seemed like they were taking as long as possible to say anything, do anything, and the takes were way longer than they needed to be. It's really like they wanted to stretch out this story as long as possible for the virtue signaling aspect of it, because I can't think of another legitimate reason to do this nonsensical episode besides the virtue signaling aspect of things. But before I get any further, there will be spoilers ahead, so spoiler alert. Now the episode, it briefly opens with Joel and Ellie traveling through this mountainous range, this forest that looks like the Pacific Northwest, and doesn't make any sense for 10 miles outside of Boston, especially because later on in the episode, it shows an aerial shot from Bill's town, and you can see Boston from Bill's town. There's no mountains in between there. Did Joel and Ellie just randomly decide, oh, we're going to take a brief detour up to Maine for a few weeks and then come back down to Bill? It was nonsensical landscape. Now, that might seem like a nitpick, but it's framing. It is geography, and their whole point is to travel. And so because of that aerial shot, it is no longer a nitpick. It's just entirely ridiculous. And Ellie's characterization continues to be entirely negative, because one of the first things she says is berating Joel for being upset about Tessa's death and being like, it's not my fault that she died. Why are you blaming me? It's incredibly insensitive. Have some empathy. He just lost the one person he seems to care about, and you're just whining about him being in a bad mood around you? It was really impressive how out of touch with reality and out of touch of human emotions that she is. She genuinely comes across like a psychopath, and that's even before some decisions she makes later on. Now, Joel and Ellie, after their initial conversation that actually doesn't develop Joel at all and only develops Ellie as a psychopath, we get to like this little truck stop that Joel has stashed some supplies in. While he's looking around in random places for those supplies, Ellie decides to go in the back and opens up a tunnel that is just randomly in the floor for no reason whatsoever, and she decides to go in. That is incredibly stupid on a myriad of levels. In a zombie apocalypse, where zombies like to stay in dark areas underground, you want to just go down a hole. She's repeatedly shown to be psychopathic and stupid. This was an incredibly stupid decision by her, and once she goes down into that tunnel, there are indeed infected down there, specifically one who's crushed by rubble. And the problem with this is it is still alive, and because of the changes made to the source material by Craig Manson, they're a hive mind. The zombies are a hive mind, so as soon as the zombie sees her, why isn't there a horde coming for her? That is why the hive mind is an issue. The tendrils connecting all the zombies together is a major, major issue, narratively speaking. And briefly, while I talk about that change that was made to the source material, not a single frame of this episode is from the video game. There's not even the aesthetic, superficial, hey, look, we took this shot from the game, aren't we so accurate? There will be no defense for this episode as being an accurate adaptation. There's really not a lot of defense for it at all, but it specifically has lost that angle of defense entirely. There's not a moment. The only thing that is even briefly game-related is Ellie mentions some events that took place in the DLC with the arcade machine and Riley. That is a brief mention to a DLC. That is all that we get in this entire episode that is even remotely The Last of Us from a story perspective and character perspective. We get absolutely zero. But go back to Ellie with this zombie that's crushed by rubble, and she really pulls out the psychopath, like full on, like I'm worried she's gonna grow up to be a serial killer because she takes out her pocket knife and starts torturing this thing, cutting up its face, grinning as she's like dissecting it before eventually killing it. It is gruesome and odd. It is so weird and really damages her character to a further degree. This isn't just not Ellie, because it has nothing in common with the Ellie character, but this is just also not a good human being. She is dangerous, and I would be afraid of her after seeing this. And then there's a couple other weird things with the Joel and Ellie part, like they had to show her getting tampons, which I think is inappropriate considering her age, but whatever. And then her schooling is very inconsistent. Some of the stuff that she knows seems really weird, and some of the stuff she doesn't know seems very weird. It's as if the director didn't even think about it, and the writer didn't even think about what her schooling would cover, so they just randomly bring up random stuff that she knows and random stuff that she doesn't know. It's incredibly inconsistent. But they, of course, end with a anti-American government COVID reference that is just way on the nose and is just out of place considering the type of show this is. We don't need a commentary on the current day political system. We don't need that at all. But luckily, it is just a throwaway line that we luckily move on from very, very quickly. And Joel reveals that apparently the soldiers rounded up a bunch of civilians and started murdering them en masse. That is not something that the military would have resources to do right after an apocalypse. There's too much going on to go out into the wilderness and start murdering everyone you come across. There's other priorities. It was just really weird for some shock horror moment of seeing some bones next to the road. It was weird and just utilized to get our initial flashback to Bill at the time of the zombie apocalypse. And now we got the 80-minute spinoff about this entire man's life since the apocalypse. It's all unnecessary and all very, very dumb. The flashbacks are ridiculous and pointless and stuffed filled with every gay stereotype in the book, like being like, oh my god, you partnered this with the most exquisite line. Oh, you're an antique? I love antiques too. And it's just every single gay stereotype that exists, they had a checklist and checked them all off. They even had a fight, this couple, Bill and Frank, had a fight about decorating in the apocalypse. We had a 5-10 minute fight about decorating in the apocalypse. It is so pointless, unnecessary, and entirely ridiculous that we spent 80 minutes on this. It feels like reality TV for a lot of it. It is so out of place. I can't harp on that enough. This is an entirely ridiculous show, a ridiculous premise, and I'm sick of this. I really hope this episode is enough to turn people around because of how retarded this episode was in its utter entirety. And we finally get a piece of action after 10 years of flashbacks, and it's about 30 seconds long and is entirely dumb. You've got an entire fortified town, and you decide to go stand out in the open with a sniper and get gunned down. That tactically doesn't make any sense. He's just standing in the middle of the road where they can see him. better than he can see them. And yeah, of course he's going to get shot. But that's it. We get some flamethrowers in the distance, a couple of gunshots, and Bill gets hit. It's really weird. And then we skip forward in time once again, and that's when it becomes Philadelphia, because Frank is dying, sick, wheelchair, and it's really weird. They get married, and it's awkward and hard to watch because it feels out of place and is incredibly cheesy, built on horrific dialogue. Every piece of dialogue is horrendous. Like, you're my purpose, and Arby's doesn't give away free food. And it's just a lot of really uncomfortable dialogue that a teenager should be ashamed of writing because of how pathetic and cheesy it is. The entire episode was flush with it. It was literally a gay spin-off love story. We just wanted to show the entire love story of these two characters. It doesn't matter. Does it develop Joel and Ellie's relationship? Not at all, because they're not in it. Does it progress the plot in any way? Not at all. Does it give us more information on the zombie apocalypse or how things happened? Not at all, so not even world building. It is literally pointless. And it's made even worse when you realize that their entire motivations, Joel and Ellie's motivations to go to Bill and Frank, doesn't make any sense, because Tess said at the end of the last episode before she died, hey, take Ellie to Bill and Frank. They'll take her off your hands and complete the mission. What about these characters makes Tess think that Bill would take a girl off of Joel's hand and continue the mission? He hates strangers. He would not accept another mouth to feed, let alone abandon his compound. There is literally no point to go there. And Tess specifically says, give Ellie to them. She doesn't say, hey, they'll give you the supplies you need. She said, give Ellie to them. It makes no sense. And so it's a side episode, a spin-off that has no point and doesn't even make sense for Joel and Ellie to be there. So you really, really could skip from episode 2 to 4 at this point and miss nothing besides, oh, who are Bill and Frank? Oh, they don't actually exist because Tess is not talking sense right now. It doesn't make any sense. And so that's where we leave off the episode. It closes out with a partner suicide. Bill and Frank kill themselves together because Frank can't go on anymore in his weakened condition, and it's supposed to be rousing, but it's really awkward and cheesy, and Bill and Frank's bodies are decomposing when Joel and Ellie find them and read a really weird suicide note from Bill that somehow has all the motivation that Joel needs to keep Ellie with him. It comes off as super weird and uncomfortable. That is probably the biggest thing besides the unnecessary nature of this episode that needs to be harped upon. It is so pointless and so uncomfortable to watch. It has nothing to do with The Last of Us whatsoever. Not a single frame, not a single line, not a single character. This is not The Last of Us. And I really hope this episode is enough for the majority of people to realize what I've been saying from the beginning. This isn't a good show. This is not a good adaptation. And it really slots in with a lot of the crap TV we've gotten in recent years. I give this episode a 2, maybe a 3 out of 10, mainly because the set design is good, and that's about it. The music didn't stand out, the acting was wooden at best and uncomfortable at worst. The characterization was near non-existent, built on stereotypes coming from a checklist, and we got near zero Joel and Ellie, and we progressed the story near not at all. It is not an episode worth watching. If you're enjoying this show, skip this episode because this will not add to your enjoyment whatsoever. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon.
Hey, yo, are you feeling what I'm doing up in here? Oh, I know you are. Do you miss all the good, compelling stories that we used to get back in Hollywood that they ain't putting down no more? I know you missing it. So check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues, baby. Book 1, Down in Flames. Book 2, Apocalypse Then. These are currently on sale. What are you waiting for? Get your hands on them. And we got book 3, Kill the Dark, is coming down the pipeline. Just wait for all the good stuff that's dropping. You ain't gonna be disappointed, fam.